Hello and welcome to the Queen Bee podcast, where the stories of regional women come alive, resonate and inspire. I'm your host, Tanya Rutherford, and together with a passionate team of women, we've painted this landscape for you. In truth, this podcast is about gathering the stories of women who live in regional and remote Australia to bridge those gaps, to create communities, and of course, to tell the richness in their journeys. Now, if anything does come up for you today, please be kind to yourself. You can share it with us, whether that's through our socials, our Queen Bee community, or you can send us a DM. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Queen Bee podcast. Joining me today is Amanda Connors. Now, Amanda and I have only ever met online, and today is no different. We're both on opposite ends of the country. We were actually coaching buddies in a transformational embodiment coaching course we both did during COVID. And I think what drew many of us particularly to this course was a desire for transformation in our own lives. So I'm looking forward to learning how this has shaped up for Amanda. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I guess to get it started, tell us a bit about where you grew up and what that was like for you.
Well, I sort of grew up in the bush as such, I guess. Lots of trees and a big property and family close by. I had a great childhood. Like, it was always outside. There were neighbours to play with and running around. So, like, lovely sense of family and Sunday night dinners with my extended family. Yeah, like a pretty happy childhood for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and I know this from when we were messaging each other before. So you're actually moved back to a very, very close to where you grew up.
Yeah.
But it's completely different now.
It is so different and it blows my mind every single day. So we've been like kind of in the growth corridor of the southeastern suburbs, or what is now like suburban, almost Melbourne, which just blows my mind. It's just changed. I went to school with cows in the paddocks around me, and now it's housing. So yeah, very different. And yeah, even today, I just drove the kids to school and there's heaps of road work and it makes you nervous, like the development. It's just, just constant change and development. And yeah, it takes adjusting and, trying to just roll with it and not get too attached. Things don't stay the same, do they? So we got to roll with it.
No, I know. And it's interesting. I mean, we're in sort of like a little regional township, I guess, just outside of Rockhampton, and this last few months have seen the beautiful old trees in the block next to us, which is what we look out on, cut down. And we've also had all the huge iconic trees for our area cut down at the end of our street, and it feels devastating. Like, you wouldn't, there's that kind of thing of like, oh, it's, progress, it's money, but the I think emotional, psychological, everything impact that it has on people doesn't ever get taken into account.
No. And I wonder who's making those decisions. What conscience do they have? Like, who are they consulting with? Like, ultimately, it sort of comes down to a person signing something off, right, to do those things, which, if that's not the right person, that's sad for everyone.
Yeah. I know my case is having arguments with the local council about the fact that there isn't any consultation process, and it affects so many people that, there really should be something. So, but you can't get it back either. So
once it's done, it's done. Like, just this, what used to be like a tree-lined road, like a small like intersection, is now, like, it was just a T intersection. Now it is like a huge intersection with traffic lights and new signs, and like, far out. Like, a year ago, this wasn't even here. And you so quickly adapt, though, and so many people wouldn't even give it a second thought.
Yeah. And I guess also for those people who are moving there, it's what they've known since they've come.
Yeah,
those
absolutely.
That they were there for the trees and for the quiet. They've either had to adapt or they've had to move somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So coming back to childhood and less depressing stuff about trees being cut down, it's really because I
Us
can see
tree
it
loving
right here.
folk.
It's really quite traumatic for me. Um, what was your childhood ambition? What did you
Do
want
you
to do?
know, when I read that question, Tanya, I was like, I honestly don't recall having one. And I found that difficult. Like, I used to be envious. I mean, as a little kid, I wasn't aware really
Yeah,
of other people having it. But as I did get older, through high school especially, I had no clear vision, no real dream, nothing. And I used to be so envious of the people that knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they were going to be a teacher or a doctor or a nurse or whatever it might have been. And thought, wow, how amazing that must feel to just know your path. And
yeah,
I think in the end, I followed along what I know I did a bit, I got a better score than I had anticipated getting, and I quickly jumped ship and followed along with some friends who were doing like health sciences or something. I don't even know what it is, like I still, you just think you should do that, so you do it. And it was pretty short lived. But yeah, and I've felt it for a long time, just not knowing what's my calling, what am I supposed to do, what do I even want to do.
yeah, yeah. So have you found that?
I think I'm most definitely getting closer and closer. I think it's always evolving, but what's changed is when I got out of that mindset of like I should do this and I should, in the end, I traveled for a long time and I had a great old time. I briefly went to university kind of straight out of school, but I just went off and traveled for years. And it wasn't until I was sort of in my later 20s and I'm like, shit, now I need to get serious. I've had my fun. So I did what I thought I should do. And I went to university and I studied marketing and went and got a job and got horribly stressed. And it was only when I had my daughter that I stopped for a little bit and was thinking, this doesn't feel good to me. Like, how am I
Yeah.
going to go back to this world, like corporate world? In my own experience, it was stressful.
Mm,
Excuse me. Like, I got skin rash, like highly stressful, like working in an advertising agency to begin with. And it was just like trying to keep up with the client, keeping the client happy. There was no, you just needed to prove yourself basically. So you didn't really consider how you actually felt. It was like, have another coffee, have a bit of sugar, keep going, push, push, push. And I mean, I did kind of find other jobs when I moved out of that agency. So, like the client facing role, it was a little easier and like I enjoyed it more so. But it was still long hours and the expectations were high. And, there's always been people nipping at your heels. So if you're not performing, someone else will. You just,
mm,
really, in a lot of cases, there's someone to replace you pretty quickly. So yeah, it wasn't until I stopped for a while and I just reassessed, and that was when I hadn't discovered this world of kind of personal development transformation then. I mean, I wish I'd been exposed to it earlier, but that's hindsight. So I just had to think that there's got to be something else for me here. And I had a lot of experience in marketing and product development. So I created a little brand, which I sold online, and it was baby products. So it was very fitting for the stage of life I was
cute.
in. But I had the dream that like this is going to give me the flexibility and the income I need to be the mum that I want to be and
Yeah,
not have to fit in being a mum around having this corporate job.
yeah,
So that was a challenge, and it sort of was always just a bit close, but no cigar. And looking back, you're like, okay, I get it. It wasn't truly aligned. It was just at that point grasping at straws, like, what do I know? What can I bring?
yeah,
But through that journey is where I got exposed to my first kind of dose of personal development, and like, hang on, like, you're not your thoughts, like you're, just considering how you speak to yourself and why are you doing what you do? Whose belief is that? Like, where did that come from? And just starting to question, like, why am I doing this? Like, what
yeah,
is this? And so that was so empowering. Um, but then it was still kind of battling along with this business I'd created, trying to do something with that. Um, and then I agonized over what to do. Do I walk away? Do I try and sell it? And that was kind of that lead up to COVID. So I managed to sell it. I didn't get a great deal of money for it, but it got me the exact amount of money I needed to enroll in our coaching course.
Must be meant to be.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
how I felt. So, and then that was an amazing journey. And it was, an incredible experience and that personal transformation, like you said earlier, that, so many of us were seeking that. We wanted something different for ourselves. And yeah, so that was where we met.
Yeah. Cool. And it is interesting. Like I know there's so much around that. I don't want to waste those skills or that experience. So I need to find a way to fit that in with what I'm doing or what I'm going to do. And there's a lot of pressure on that because I guess we've invested so much of our time and ourselves in developing that. And maybe sometimes we're a bit too literal when we're trying to apply those skills rather than thinking about, okay, well, what else has that given me?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. And not even knowing what else is available to you, I think. Like for me, definitely, I just pinned myself. I've never really, and even still, when someone will say, "Oh, what's your like wildest dream?" Like I struggle to articulate because it's something I've probably never allowed for myself. It's
Yeah.
like this is all you know, and probably at that point, all you've seen. And that was really the beginning of like the Instagrams and where you could really see what other people were doing and what might be possible for you or crumble in a pool of self-doubt and comparison.
Tears.
Yeah, I need to watch myself on those things because that's easy. But now, you can see, I mean, there's so many new roles, so many different careers that weren't even available to us, when we were
No.
in school or growing up. It's mind blowing now. So it was all just sort of getting a little glimpse of what was available to you, and yeah, sort of being able to step away. Yeah, and even the business, like I put so much into that, this baby business. So to step away from it was hard, I'm like I've
Yeah.
invested so much time and energy and money, and yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah. And so thinking about where you've been, where are you going now?
Well, I think I'm very much more aligned with what feels good to me, and like I
Yep.
don't have to fit in a box anymore. Um, so trusting in myself and tuning into what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And obviously, you need a audience to be able to speak to. If they're not into it, you're not going to get very far. But I think there's so much room to be yourself and do what feels good to you. And I know, like my conditioning and upbringing was that you've got to work so hard to make money, and
Yeah.
that's really hard to break away from. Like work typically was not something you enjoyed. You just did it because you had to do it. But actually, it's allowed to be enjoyable, and you can create it to be what you want.
Yeah.
It's hard,
And I think there's also that thing of like it's not just what you create, it's that you've got to be spending all this time on it. You've got to
Mm,
be pushing yourself. And that's why I think we get to that point where in that corporate environment, it becomes so easy to burn out because you get in the flow with that and you're just going, yeah, I've got to keep going. I've got to keep going. And then all
yeah,
of a sudden you can't anymore.
yeah. That's right. And it's easy to fall into that same pattern in your own business, but you don't
Mm.
have to do that. Like I guess it's just finding a bit of a balance where you're not burning yourself out and you can enjoy what you're doing. But then in that, I mean, there's challenges in each, right? But I always think, God, it would be easy sometimes to go and work for someone else because you're kind of told what to do and you can see the path. And when you're doing your own thing and you're just constantly trying to create something and you're constantly pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, like it can it can get a bit exhausting after a while, and
Yeah.
you want to just sometimes think, oh God, no, I'll just go work for someone else. It'd be so much easier.
So what do you find in terms of the work, what you are doing now, not necessarily work, but maybe it's, fun paid stuff. What are the unique challenges or benefits of trying to do this in a regional, or in your case, outer suburban now
Yeah.
setting?
Well, I think it's still well, in my head, I think in the city there's more progressive people. They're open to new things. There's now a lot of people out here, but it's not the same as the city. There's so many different people willing, and I shouldn't say more open-minded, but I am finding that, people stuck in their comfort zones, and I guess they are there too, but maybe there's more people to kind of choose from. I don't know if that's, yeah, not the right thing to say, but trying to bring new ideas to places where maybe they haven't been before. Like, you come up against a bit of pushback and people like, oh, that's scary and unfamiliar, and I don't want to like push myself out of my comfort zone. So the moment I'm running these silent discos, which are for mindfulness and movement. So it's not just you coming and sticking on some headphones and having to dance without a drink. The people will go and drink and dance, but they're so scared to just dance. So it's trying to overcome all those self-limiting thoughts, and it's challenging to get anybody there. And the women who have come are like, whoa, that was amazing. That was, the best thing ever. But just the resistance to actually trying something new. It's not, something's not really been done before. I'm finding challenging at the moment.
And do you find that, or do you think perhaps that that's about the challenge of finding the people who are open to it? Like, what are their connections? And I think that's probably the beauty sometimes of being online, is that there's so many people that you're more likely to be found. Whereas when you're doing things face to face, you've got to work hard to get that word out and find those people.
Absolutely. And I feel like, it's just encouraging people to give it a go. So it's the right messaging, and but it's a limited amount of people, I guess, if you compare it to online, where you've got worldwide reach essentially, and lots more people who are in that mindset of wanting to make changes, wanting to do things differently. So I liked that idea of being in person. I think after so long that, like you said, you and I have only ever known each other online. And
I know.
I met someone last year who I'd only known online. It was so bizarre. I'm like, whoa, I totally thought you'd be taller. Like, I've only seen you from the head up. It's so funny. But so the idea of connecting in person is really appealing to me. But within a geographic location, there's only so many people that are going to be vibing with you, and they've got other options. Like, there's, people know yoga, they know Pilates, they, things that are safe to them. So it's interesting. But it's just constantly trying to challenge yourself and think a little differently and try something new, and not be put off when, you only have a few bookings to your sessions. And it's like, I'm sure at some point, it will turn around. But yeah.
So tell us a bit more about what this silent disco concept is.
Well, it's really trying to build that connection with your body. So so many of us are living in our heads, right? Like, we're really not attached. We don't know what's going on in our body. We don't know. People try to dance. I mean, the beauty of alcohol is you're loose, you're not overthinking, and that's what we do day to day. So we're always putting on such a front, I think, and this is an opportunity for people to just tune in to their body and stop the thoughts. Everyone comes and like, oh, people are going to look at me and they're going to think I'm a crappy dancer. It's not about that. This is about you just being able to just drop in, get out of those thoughts, like stop worrying what you look like, close your eyes. And with the headphone, that's what I love with the headphones and the silent disco, that they're like noise cancelling headphones. So you're just so in your own world, and I'm guiding it. But it's just helping people to just start inhabiting their body more, like feel into you. Like, what does it actually feel like when you move your body this way? Or, what resistance are you experiencing? Like, some people like, oh, I can't move my hips. Like, it's just starting to notice and gain awareness of our body. And that's can be a real relief from our thoughts and being caught up in our head so often, and the overthinking, that being able to just tune in to our body. And it's like a breather from the relentless chatter that goes on in our heads. So that's my end goal, is like just to help people find And it is like a space of meditation, essentially, that like
Yeah.
you can remove some of those thoughts and just feel what's going on, not be narrating it. And you know, the women that have calm, you know, we do a little bit of breathing work as well. So you're finding like a place of relaxation too, and you're able to just let go. I mean, that's a challenge. So it's kind of like the more they come, the more they're going to be able to let go. I get that it's a process, and yeah, just finding more flow and being able to take that out into their day-to-day life. That's yeah, my ideal scenario.
No, that sounds good. And I think like it's interesting that you know, the alternatives you mentioned, like yoga and Pilates, they are very different because it is very structured. It is
Mm,
about doing certain things, whereas this is that concept of free movement and what feels good for me, not necessarily, holding the stretch for long enough, which is usually mine and
absolutely.
going, oh, I should do this
Yeah.
more often, but it's
Yeah,
killing me. But so if something doesn't feel right, then you can try something different. And
that's right.
yeah,
And that's what I really make clear at the beginning. Like, I'm going to guide this, but if something I suggest or, you know, guide you to do doesn't feel good, don't do it. But it's funny that we're so, again, conditioned to just do what we're
yes,
told. And
yes.
so, you know, if someone's in yoga and it doesn't feel good, they might just keep pushing and trying to do it because they think they should do that. They've been told to do that. So this is really trying to break that mold too and move intuitively and move, yeah, in that way that feels good in your body, not trying to conform to someone else or, yeah, something else.
So coming back to this is kind of, I guess, your current path of your travels
Iteration.
that's going
Yes.
somewhere into the future and it's been somewhere in the past.
Yeah.
Have there been moments when you've been going through that, I guess, those changes where you felt hopeless? And, how did you get through those?
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, so many. It just keeps evolving. And I think, you know, there's got to be an element of trust, but it's also just fostering the self-belief that, you know, I feel I'm on the right path and it's okay. It's taking longer than I might have hoped that it would have. Um, but it's also your sort of, yeah, you're treading new ground, like you're trying to create a path for yourself. And yes, lots of other people might have done it now, but in my experience, in my world, this is also new, and you're up against people like even saying, like, why would, because I guess ultimately at this point, I just want to continue with the coaching and create some programs that bring in all this, like, you know, intuitive movement and the mindfulness into that. So I can sort of see the path mapped out. But I think too, just because of the way I grew up and people like, oh, coaching, like that's so taboo for, like, I couldn't even say that I was a coach or had done this coaching certification for ages
Mm.
because I just felt there was stigma around it. So it's been a big journey even just to be able to own that. And
Yeah, and you do like there's this legitimacy around being a business coach. But
yeah,
if you're like a life coach or transformational, something slightly different, it's like, ooh, it's all woo woo and it's not real. And
yes,
you're just a bit,
yes, it's
strange for
so.
doing that.
And I've kept teetering back because I have this marketing and business background. So that would be a nice fit. And I've kind of, that's where I've sat for a little while. But I think if I'm being really honest with
Yeah.
myself, it's introducing people to this world of like where you can just free yourself of like your own, like your shoulds and your, this is the way I should be. And I need to do this and that because that's what people should do, you know? So freeing them of themselves really and of all that conditioning and the limiting beliefs and the way they've been brought up. So I just do feel this calling to be more at this like entry level of the personal development world, but people don't know they need it, right? Like it's
Yeah.
sort of, if you don't understand it, unless something, you know, maybe you hit a really tough patch and you're looking for a way out, people don't know that they need it. They don't know what's available to them. Um, and that's where I get stuck because it's sort of too like you know you need a hairdresser, you know you need an accountant, you know you need like a doctor, you know, physio, all those really normal things that are so widely accepted. But a coach, it's
Yeah.
like, and it's money at the moment, you know, in the current economic climate too, and you can psych yourself out. And that's what I struggle with a little bit. I'm like, who's going to do this? But I know the power of the work. Like, it's changed my life completely and changed the way I feel about myself. And it's changed the trajectory. Like now, yes, this path isn't easy, but I know I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I completely understand that, because with in our Learn, Grow, Become part of the business, our Learn to Learn program, it's the same sort of concept. It's, okay, you don't actually know how to learn in a higher education, like a university setting, so we're going to teach you. But people are like, but I know how to learn. It's like, well, actually you don't, because no one's ever taught you. And I've got so many chickens carrying on today. It's
I
like
love it.
driving me crazy. But yeah, so I can totally understand that.
Yeah.
So when you did find that, um, what? Let me rephrase that. Start again. Cut out this bit. What's something that you've learned from your journey that you believe could resonate with women everywhere?
So the biggest thing is in just trusting yourself and maybe questioning why you're doing what you're doing. And does that really feel good to you? Or is that what you think is expected of you? I think that's the biggest thing, that I just followed along with the crowd. I didn't think it was okay to step outside of the path that I'd known or that I could see. And I think now it's just step outside, like follow what makes you feel good and explore that. And how can you bring more of that into your life?
Yeah. And so is that the message that you would give that younger self of yours who didn't know what to do or where to go and felt jealous that others did?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, stop following. You don't need to be like everyone else. You can start just treading your own path and trust that things, I mean, it's such a hard thing, trust, isn't it? But like that, if we can trust that there's a higher power, that like these desires, these thoughts, these dreams that we've kind of been given, like other people don't have the same, well, some do, but not exactly the same as ours. So they're there for a reason. Try and trust in that and just take those little steps. And even just in finding more joy day to day, like really listening to what lights you up. Like, when are you having the most fun? And if you can't make that a career, like at least work out ways to bring more of that into your life.
Lovely. And is there anything else you would like to share while you're with us today?
I think they're my biggest, like the takeaways. I always come back to that conditioning because it blows my mind, as the way we go through life, just not even questioning that there's anything else. And I think just like dream bigger, use your imagination. And it's like, I think in the past I've been scared to daydream, because you think, oh, but that's never going to happen and that's disappointing. But actually, like, if we can really tap into that and imagine a life like that, then we're going to get ourselves closer to it. And it's that, like, how do we need to be to step into that? And by imagining it and like, okay, well, that version of me, like, how does she dress? Like, what does she do day to day? Does she get up and meditate? Does she go out and dance and like not care what anyone's thinking? And the more of those little pieces we can bring in, the closer we're getting to creating this life that we love. And what is, like, anything's available to us if we step our mind to it. And I think that's what I still struggle with a little bit. I know it to be true, but it's like, again, we're just so stuck in the way we've been brought up and like what we know, that stepping out of that is uncomfortable. And you might take a few steps out, but you come back, because that's the path that you've tread the longest, right? That's you got to try and build these new neural pathways to the life that you want and who you need to be living that life.
Yeah, and it's such a big thing, because we're conditioned in every environment, whether it's school, whether it's like the workplace. There is, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really lovely. One, to see you again, because it's been a little while.
Yeah.
And definitely to learn about the silent disco. I've been extremely curious.
Yes, so I'll have to bring some online form of it, won't I? So that
Yep.
everyone can experience what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. For sure. So we've been talking with Amanda Connors today, who's a mum, an embodiment coach, and a lover of dance and self-discovery.
Yeah.
Her mission is to bring the joy of dance and the mindfulness of movement to more women. She guides you to get out of your head and tune into your body. And she has currently got face-to-face programs in Upper Beaconsfield in Victoria, and promises some online programs for the rest of us to have a go with. Thanks so much, Amanda.
Thank you, Tanya. It was lovely.
The Queen Bee podcast delves into the heart of regional women's experiences, their aspirations, challenges, and journeys. It's a platform that celebrates their individuality, their resilience, and their ambition. These are tales of reinvention, adaptation, inspiration, and the power of connections.